Real people, real breakthroughs. This is the Psychology of Eating podcast, where psychology and nutrition meet to uncover the true causes of our unwanted eating concerns. Your relationship with food will never be the same. Now, here's your host, eating psychology expert, and founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, Marc David.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Marc David, founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and we are here in the Psychology of Eating podcast, and I am with Kevin today. Welcome, Kevin.
Welcome. Hey, how are you?
I am doing good. I am glad you're doing this. And give me a moment so I can kind of update new viewers and listeners about what's happening. So if you're new to the podcast, here's how it works. We're going to be together for about an hour. I have not yet met Kevin in person like this before, and we're going to try to squeeze as many months as possible into one session and see if we can kind of give some good advice and help move things along for you, Kevin, for whatever you want to work on. So I'm going to ask Kevin a bunch of questions, and hopefully we will create a little bit of daylight. So my question for you, my friend, is if you could wave your magic wand and get whatever you wanted from this time together, what would the big win look like for you?
I think the big win for me would look like getting back on track with the weight loss. I had weight loss surgery about 3 years ago and had lost a whole bunch of weight and then started gaining it back and find it difficult to create and maintain momentum in getting it back off again.
Mm-hmm. How much weight did you lose?
I lost about 160 pounds with weight loss surgery.
And how much came back on?
Probably about 90 of that came back on.
And when did the surgery happen?
December of 2013. So 3 years ago.
3 years ago. And at what period of time after that surgery did the weight come back on?
Probably about a little over a year, maybe 15 months later.
Okay. And then the weight came back on, but it's stabilized at this particular amount now. Is that true?
Right. I'm stable now. I've probably lost about 8 pounds since the highest of the regain. Mm-hmm. And that's through, stuff I've been learning with the course we're taking.
So in your ideal universe, how much would you like to lose right now? What feels reasonable and doable for you?
Probably about 100 to 120 pounds. Mm-hmm. Like right now I'm about 365 and I was down to 275. So
got it. And what inspired you to do the surgery? How did you get to that point where you said, okay, I'm doing this?
I had spent many years as morbidly obese and not really able to do anything about it successfully. Every time I diet, I would gain it back, and I could lose 50 and gain back 60, and it got to the point where I was having lower back problems, and I went in for an injection, and both the orthopedic surgeon and anesthesiologist said, this man's not going to make it to 50 if he doesn't get his diabetes under control. I had high blood pressure, diabetes, sleep apnea, was starting diabetic neuropathy from that, which was affecting probably a second level where it was starting to affect my balance. So I was falling. I had a pulmonary embolism 6 months before the surgery, so I was not in a good place. Mm-hmm. And I knew I had to do something about it, and I just had let everything pretty much get away from me and my health completely. So I went through a long battle with trying to get insurance to cover it, and finally got it covered, and my surgery date was December 28th because we had to get that done before the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Well, that was a brave move. Are you in a relationship, married, single, divorced?
A relationship. Mm-hmm. I'm divorced. I was married for 10 years and been divorced for 17 years, pretty much. So my kids are grown and doing well.
And the relationship you're in now, how long has it been?
Probably a couple years. Mm-hmm. It's more like a best friendship than a love interest, but it's somebody great companionship.
Mm-hmm. And if I would ask that person who kind of knows you probably better than I do, if I said to that person, so why do you think Kevin has trouble with his weight? What would your friend say?
Um,
Or what do you imagine?
well, there was one thing probably back 2 years ago when I went in for some lab work, and the doctor said your blood levels are all normal. And kind of what I heard in my mind, I think, was you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're done. You've achieved. You've gotten the health back. You're kicked diabetes and all those kinds of things. And as I started spending more time with my friend, I started spending less time working out and doing those things that I was more diligent, more, it was a regimen that I was under. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, I started through conversations with her, I started realizing that, I'm still just as much a slave to my relationship with food. Being a weight loss surgery patient as I was when I was obese, I'm just not as heavy. But,
Mm-hmm.
it was still, what do I eat? When do I eat? Got to work out. It wasn't truly living my life at that point.
Understood. So let's go back before the weight loss surgery. And I'm not asking you for a right answer here. I'm just asking you for sort of trying to understand you and what goes on in your mind when you think to yourself, Kevin, I've had this challenge with weight for X number of years. Why do you tell yourself that that challenge was there?
Um, I don't know really. Well, I think part of it was just I was single and living alone, and I've always struggled with weight from, you know, probably in my early 20s. All growing up, I was told, you need to lose weight, blah blah blah. I look at pictures back when I was in high school. I don't look like I'm super heavy or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
I know I was always wearing the husky sizes and things like that, and it was, kind of, you should be losing weight. You should weigh this. And I was kind of, I don't know if I was rebelling against that as a child and, just eating things. I can remember hiding things and, you know, bad habits like that. And,
Yeah.
and then when I got divorced, I kind of sort of let myself go a little bit and um, I didn't have a scale. I didn't step on a scale, didn't realize where I was with weight. And then one day I stepped on a scale that was at it was actually in a restroom at a sports bar.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those ones you put a quarter in, it tells you your fortune and what you weigh, and it said 401 pounds. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, where did that come from? So it was like a period of, several years you know, that all of a sudden I just kind of checked out very
Mm.
much.
Yeah.
And, um, and then once I was there, that's when the struggle started with, Nutrisystem and Atkins and
Sure. So sounds like that was a quarter well spent.
yeah,
What was the fortune? Do you remember the fortune you got out of
I
it?
have no idea. Probably,
Probably not that important.
probably you will lose weight.
So, are your parents still alive?
My parents, well, my biological father is not alive, but my mom divorced separated when I was very young and then remarried, and he legally adopted me. So
Hmm.
call him dad, but then they divorced years later and they're both still alive, but my biological father passed away.
When did he pass away? Your biological dad.
I think it was like 1990.
Were you in any kind of contact with him?
Very little contact. It was kind of kept apart until I was like over 18, and then I had the option I could meet him and see him and develop a distant relationship. But
Hmm.
it was kind of ask the questions, who are you, and that kind of stuff. But
Hmm. So, by the way, I'm asking some personal questions here. You have all the power to not go there, and
right,
so no harm done. So just make sure you maintain your boundaries. But I'm gonna might be poking around here. So, can you share why your dad was not allowed to be in contact with you?
I think that was part of what my parents felt at the time was the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was, in fact, my biological grandmother was the one that, promoted he should be adopted so that he could have so I could grow up with the same last name as my brothers and sisters. And, this was back in 1970, 1960, around that area. And, those were decisions that were, not, not for me to make, but they made them. And so part of it was, sign away the rights. But, later I learned that, he'd watch from afar, and he kind of kept track of things I was doing, because I still had maintained a relationship with my biological grandparents. So they were very much a part of my life. But
so if I was able to ask your biological dad, if he was around, and I was able to ask him, okay, why did this happen? How come you kind of gave up the rights to really raise your son? If he had one sentence, what would he say?
I think what my grandmother told me is that she basically told him it was the right thing to do, and he listened to his mother and did that. So
why was it the right thing to do? Give me a hardline reason.
I personally don't know that it was the right thing to do, but it's I guess she felt just in that era it was the right thing to do. And he had made mistakes, I guess, and left my mom and I when I was very young. And I don't know why he did that, or why he agreed to do that, other than probably it was suggested strongly.
Do you personally, you don't have to share this with me, but do you know what those mistakes were that he made?
I don't know exactly.
Do you wish to know?
It would be nice to know. I know, some of them were, I think there were financial mistakes, and, there was a lot of pressure, I think, from my maternal grandmother that, they should be in certain social circles, and pressure to do more than the means that they had. And, so I think he maybe gambled or did some things that weren't acceptable, I guess.
Yeah. Did he ever abuse you in any way?
No, not that I know of.
And your adoptive father, so you said he's still alive.
Yes.
How's your relationship with him?
It's distant at this point. As he's gotten older, he's gotten more grumpy. And he still lives back home in St. Louis. I'm in Dallas, and it's just difficult sometimes to have a relationship and talk to him. He was never the warm, loving type. It was very strict and stern in the household for me and my siblings as well.
So it never really felt like Dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when did you leave your parents' house for good? How old were you?
About 22, 23.
And so leaving meant going to school or just going out on your own finally?
Well, I went to school when I was 18, went away to school for a couple of years, didn't do really well, so came back home and finished my degree at home in St. Louis, and moved out when I met the woman who became my wife, and you have to live together while we were engaged, and then we're married and spent 10 years together. So.
Got it. So when you think of losing the weight, I get that there's a health component for sure. What else? Are you motivated or inspired for any other reasons to lose the weight, or do you just think, I want to get my health in place?
Well, primarily the health, but then also I'd like to be more active. I'd like to be able to do more things that the body's just not capable of doing at a heavier weight. I'd like to travel more and just be able to do more things and experience more things in my life that I'm just inhibited by being overweight.
Got it. I just want to jump back to your biological dad for 1 second. Tell me how old you were when that kind of separation happened and he was no more kind of directly in your life. You were how old?
I believe I was maybe a year and a half when he left, and I don't remember any contact with him as a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom remarried when I was like 4.5. So,
Got it. So at what point did you realize to yourself, at what point were you able to say to yourself, huh, Kevin, my biological dad ain't in the picture, and that's interesting. Like, when did you realize that I don't have my dad here and dad is alive somewhere else?
um, I'm sure it was after my mom had remarried and I was, adopted. I knew that wasn't my biological father. And, there were probably 7, 8, 9 years old and growing up and wondering, you know, what is my dad doing?
Mm-hmm.
I know he's out there somewhere, and, you know, I see my grandparents all the time. I know they're his parents, but I'm just wondering. I know there was a time in my life where, it got probably around when I grew up Jewish, so right around my bar mitzvah, I kind of asked, could he be invited? And, was quickly told no. But, just curiosity, it's like, well, wouldn't he want to see, his son? So it was a whole discussion as to, well, he's never been here anyway, but,
Mm-hmm.
so it's, I hear one story from mom and maybe another story from my grandmother who's passed away, but so the truth may never be known.
Got it. So you never got the straight story. I get the picture. How old's your mom now?
Mom is 73.
Are you guys close?
Relatively close.
Mm-hmm. And does she ever talk about your biological dad?
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. So can I ask what kind of work you're doing these days?
I'm an accountant right now,
Mm-hmm.
currently.
Are you working with a firm? Are you on your own?
In government, working for the city of Dallas.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And when you think about the next 20, 30, 40 years on planet Earth, do you have a sense of what you want in this next kind of half of your life?
Well, I realize I'm not really happy in the work that I do anymore. When I did lose 160 pounds and I was more active, it was very hard to sit still.
Mm-hmm.
I was very public about my weight loss journey. I developed a lot of followers, through Facebook and social media, and was quickly learning that the journey I had gone on for myself was one that inspired all kinds of other people to make changes in their lives. And, people from facing anorexia issues to, wanting to quit smoking to wanting to pick up running. And it was very humbling to me, but it also felt like that was something that I needed more of. I felt like I had a calling to inspire and help other people do that. So hence I was looking for something in that direction and found your eating psychology coaching program and
Mm-hmm.
working towards doing something different with all that.
Got it. Good for you. If you were on your deathbed right now, other than weight loss,
Mm-hmm.
you're on your deathbed and I or somebody that you felt like answering asked you the question, so Kevin, what's undone here? What remains unfinished that you wish you would have finished before the moment happens? What do you think you might say?
Wow. Tough question.
It is.
I wish I would have seen more of the world,
Mm-hmm.
done more things, been closer with my parents, been closer with my children than I am. I felt that, the years I had spent being morbidly obese, I cheated my children of
Mm-hmm.
a more active father, somebody who was, when I spent time with them, and I was divorced for a lot of years during there, we would come over to my place and pop in a video, while I'd play on a computer or do something, but it wasn't the quality time that a father should spend. But, we did our trips to Disney World and those were tough for me, but I did what I had to do, but and I enjoyed it, but it was still, I wish that I could get some of those years back with them. They're going to be, one of them's 24, the other one just turned 20. So
boys, girls, male, female?
one of each. My son is the oldest, and then my daughter.
And where are they geographically?
My daughter lives with me now, a strange living situation, but my son lives out in Lubbock, Texas, where he went to college. Yeah.
And are you close with your son at all?
Yeah, we're close. We talk several times a week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything else about the deathbed experience that comes to mind right now?
Just... Yeah, not really, I guess. I mean, I'm sure I wish, that deeper relationships would have loved more and those kinds of things.
I get it.
A companion, but, it's the companionship that I have right now is wonderful, but, I wish there was something more.
Understood. So I have some thoughts about you and your experience that I would love to share.
Okay.
And before I share those thoughts, I want to qualify where I'm coming from around them. So where I'm coming from in sharing the thoughts is I'm trying to listen for what I think sort of hangs out as the root kind of ground zero of you and the extra weight. We're not talking about 20 extra pounds, 30 extra pounds, 40 or 50. We're talking about a lot of extra weight for you that you've carried at different times. So when I hear that, so that's an extreme. And
right.
People go to extremes in all different ways. So when I hear that level of extreme, in part what it tells me is that you have a damn good reason that's equal and opposite to that extreme as to why one would gain that much weight. Okay, so gaining a lot of weight is a strong reaction to something. It's a strong reaction to something strong that you've experienced, to something big that you've experienced. That's how I look at it. A 10-pound weight gain, a 20-pound weight gain, not as big. Sorry to say. If somebody, has the problem of they drink a little too much, that's different from the person who's drinking all day. So that's an extreme reaction. So I'm therefore listening for what I think is where the true action is, because there's a level where we can talk about diet, we can talk about food, we can talk about, okay, what's going to motivate you. But what I've heard is this problem has been around for a while. You had the surgery, you lost a lot of weight, a chunk of it came back. You're not happy with that, and you know that you took your foot off the gas. There's a reason you took your foot off the gas. You're not quite aware of it, is my guess. It seems like the reason is, well, I got my blood test back, and they said it was good, so I took my foot off the gas. That's the worldly reason. That's a trigger, but it's not the reason. It's the reason we could turn to and maybe agree on, but it doesn't go deep enough, because you're dealing with a powerful life issue that when you handle it, you get back your power in a big way. So that's the good news. This is a powerful issue, and on the flip side of that is a lot of power. Really, on the flip side is a ton of power. So, I like to say that extra weight is potential energy. It is just stored energy. It's interesting. I lived in Hawaii for a bunch of years, and Hawaiians have a whole different take on people who are big and have a lot of weight. Hawaiians will tell you that, and I'm talking about, you can have an extremely obese Hawaiian, and what Hawaiians will say is that person has a lot of mana. Mana, M-A-N-A, in Hawaiian means power. They don't go, you fat slob, you jerk, you idiot. They go, that person has a lot of power. Interesting, because I think they're noticing something that we don't always notice, because there is a lot of power there. And what happens is a lot of time is that power isn't being expressed because it got waylaid into the weight. So when I'm trying to kind of tap into you based on the questions, I immediately went to your early life, because extreme weight gains are often connected to extreme life experiences. And you had an extreme life experience called Dad disappeared. I don't care what anyone says or doesn't say, that is intense. That is extremely intense. And I want to say something else. For a boy, it's more intense when it's the same-sex parent. Now, had this happened to a girl, would it still be intense? Absolutely. But if she lost her mother, it would have been more intense when it's the same-sex parent, because we are looking to model off of our same-sex parent. That's our first, parents are our first gods. Your father is your first model if you're a boy. Your mother is your first model if you're a girl. It's just what we do. We imprint in a very specific way off of the same-sex parent. You couldn't quite do that, and you had this other dude who showed up in the house. He's another dude.
Yeah.
He's not the real deal. And let's thank him for, taking this on. It takes a big person to adopt. And right. I'm not saying he did his job perfectly, but what I'm saying is he probably did the best he could. But more to the point, let's put him to the side for a second, thank him for doing that. And you took a big wallop. And especially because it was masked in secrecy, you never got real answers. So consequently, you've grown up with a big gap. Now, I'm going to suggest something. So this all comes out of I'll call them opinions based on how my mind works, based on, my experience in this field. The mind, the brain is very metaphoric. The soul is metaphoric. So on some level, what you experienced was a very intense abandonment. That's what the child experiences. It's abandonment. Abandonment is a pure energy. Imagine if you got left in a little box on the street somewhere. That's abandonment. Our parents, according to biology, are supposed to be there. You're supposed to wake up and they're there. So when a parent disappears, and especially it's shrouded in mystery, you couldn't quite give me answers because you weren't quite given answers.
Right.
Other than yeah. We're going to push that one aside. In fact, we're not going to do a direct hit. So that sense of abandonment that you experienced, what happens that humans often do, and I'm saying humans because we all do this, we reproduce the wound in a metaphoric, symbolic way that happened to us in order to learn how to heal it. We will take the offense that was committed to us in some way, shape, or form and reproduce it. So you were abandoned by your same-sex parent, by your dad. You gaining a lot of weight is you abandoning your body. You abandon you because that's what you were taught. You were given that model. Dad abandons you? Okay, I abandon me. If you were given the model, Dad is a stickler, Dad is always on top of you, then you would be a stickler, you'd be on top of yourself. If your model was Dad was this, then you're going to follow that. Your model is Dad disappeared. In order for you to gain the amount of weight that you did, you had to just say adios to yourself in a certain way. I asked you the question, if you're on your deathbed, what would you say you regretted other than weight? First thing you said, you tapped in right away. You said, I wish I would have been there more for my kids. So in a weird way, you enacted with your kids some of what was enacted upon you. You kind of weren't there, even though you were there. You did the best you could under the circumstances. You did the best you could. I got no doubt about that. But it's a boatload of emotional pain and duress and trauma to the system for a young child, in this case a young boy, to have that sense of abandonment and not know how to make sense of it. And here you are, an adult, how old are you? 40, 50?
51.
Looking pretty good for 51. So,
Thanks.
so here you are as an adult. You still don't have the freaking story. That annoys me. Not because of you, because of what you were not given.
Right.
So here's what I'm trying to say in all this, my friend. I'm sorry, I'm yakking away and I'm like going hard here. Let me just pause a moment. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm used to playing at a heart level, but I went through a program 2 years ago called Pathways. It was a Dr. Phil heart level experiential training that everything played from a heart level. And you got to, my whole philosophy, and even with the eating psychology, it's you got to break somebody down before you can build them back up.
Yeah.
And so I become more direct, like you are with this is what I see, how does that ping you, and those kinds of things. So
Understood. So I think, in my opinion, Kevin, this is ground zero for you. This is where the action is. And if it's uncomfortable, it should be, because it is.
right.
And I personally believe that as you are able to digest this whole experience more, you will be able to inhabit your body in a different way. So part of this is, I'm not quite sure how to go about this. I would love for you to give one last major effort to shake your mom a little bit, and I want you to get more story. I want you to get more facts. I want you to be able to look your mother in the eye and say, listen, I need to know some shit here. I need to know some details. I don't want you to hold anything back. I want you to tell me the truth. It's like, hey, no blame. I know you did the best you could, Mom. I'm not asking you to admit anything wrong. I'm not trying to put you in a corner. I just want information for my sake, because there's information that you need, I think, that will just round out the picture to help you metabolize this a little better. The ultimate task, to me, that you need to do such that you can shapeshift your body. See, when you shapeshifted your body after the surgery, it didn't hold because you weren't able to hold it. You were not able to hold it. You had the body shift, but you did not have the full internal shift that you needed.
Oh, absolutely.
So to me, the full internal shift happens when we do something with your dad, your biological dad, and we do something in the present that helps move your lack of good parenting forward. My suggestion around that would look like this. Here's kind of what I think is the road. The road is, there's a place where we get stopped. A part of us gets stopped. The pause button gets pushed on that time in our life. So there's a part of you that's that little kid who got abandoned. I was trying to ask you, so when did you start to notice that your dad is not your dad and this is another guy? So it was probably when new dad showed up. And maybe it really started hitting you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, not so sure, but right around then is when there's a part of you that got hurt and froze a little bit. And it's that part that gains the weight. So there's different people that live inside of us. So I'm talking to the adult Kevin, but I'm also as well engaged with the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old Kevin who was living in this weird mystery and this weird abandonment. So we got to get him caught up. We got to get him on the wagon, and we got to move him forward. The way you do that is you start becoming a better dad. A better dad to your children, whatever that means to you. And B, most importantly, a father to yourself. This is the time to father you like your first dad couldn't do it, and kind of like your second dad couldn't do it. There's no one else to do it right now. but you. And what that means is a good father does not abandon his children. Plain and simple. A good dad does not abandon your children. So it was hard for you to stay present for your children because you didn't have a good model, my friend. So, and you did the best you could.
I think there was a time in my life where, when we moved to Dallas, I was already been divorced for 4 or 5 years. And my ex-wife had a tremendous job opportunity to move to Dallas and wanted to take the kids. So I decided there was no better choice than for me to just pick up everything and move to Dallas too, because I had to be here. I wasn't going to let that distance happen between me and my children.
Good for you. Good for you. So you've taken steps to move in that direction. So now let's point and shoot that good fathering energy towards you. And I would really love for you to kind of consider, noodle with, and if you're the kind of guy that could journal, I would love for you to spend some reflective time, some honest time with yourself on what abandoning yourself means to you. How do I actually abandon myself? How do I check out? How do I disappear from me? I want you to look at how you do that on a daily basis. What are the little, and we all do this. Mm-hmm. We all check out in different ways. We check out for only one reason, and one reason alone, because it ain't fun being in. So we check out. It ain't fun being in, which means it ain't comfortable. There's something that hurts. There's an emotion or a collection of emotions that just, we don't know what to do with them. And likely it's a mixture of anger, sadness, rage, depression, apathy, all of it, you name it. So rather than have to try to figure that all out because it ain't easy, we check out. Because leaving the body is a way to, it's a way to help the feelings. And it's a way to not feel the feelings, essentially. So what I'm saying is that's been a strategy of yours, and that is a common strategy that we all do when it's too uncomfortable. For you to stay checked in, that's really where the action is. It is less about what you eat. It is less about sticking to a diet. Sticking to a diet really doesn't say what the task is. The task is not leaving yourself. The task is not disappearing on you. You not disappearing on you. So it's, okay, Kevin, I'm standing by you. I'm being present with you. I am not checking out. And one of the ways we check out is we don't notice the subtleties. So a lot of times when people don't notice the subtleties, they will notice I am extremely hungry or I am extremely full. Those are extremes. People who are numbed out, oftentimes they have to go to a horror movie to feel something. They have to go to a movie that is so intense that it pulls their emotions out because they're not feeling the subtleties. We don't feel subtleties because a part of us isn't paying attention, because a part of us is checking out. So I would love for you to become a master of subtlety. You already do this probably in the accounting realm. In order to be a decent accountant, man, you have to master the details, for goodness sakes. It's like, talk about subtleties, all the little numbers. You have to notice all that stuff.
I was just saying last week that sometimes when it comes to hunger and fullness, I don't really see anything in the middle. I know when I'm really hungry and I know when I'm really full, but anything in the middle is just hard to feel and hard to register with me. So that kind of just hit home with what you just said.
Yeah, bingo. Bingo, 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 because that's what happens when we have taken a painful hit. We often will go numb because we go into a hospital, get surgery, you better get numb. Otherwise, it's going to be too painful to get cut open.
Right.
Emotional experiences that are painful will often cause us to numb. And when we numb, then the only experiences we can feel are extremes. You will feel extreme hunger, extreme fullness, and now is your time to start to feel the subtleties. And the truth is, when you start to feel somewhat hungry, or somewhat full, or a little hungry for this, or a lot hungry for that, when you start to feel the subtleties in food and in body, you will also start to notice other subtleties in your life in terms of feelings. We don't even know what they're going to be. But it's you learning a different strategy. And those subtleties are all about what you're feeling. They're about your emotions, and they're about bodily sensations. It is hard to feel and experience bodily sensations if we don't want to be here. So part of it for you as well is to start to ask the question, what will it take for me to say, I want to be here and I want to do this? Not I want to do this, but I want to be here. There has to be a compelling reason for you to be here alive on planet Earth. Sometimes that compelling reason is just, I want to do this. I want to make my life work. I want to see if I can make it. I want to give it my best shot. That just might be your compelling reason. It is not going to be easy because you will have to feel stuff that doesn't feel good. I'm just telling you from my experience about these kinds of things. This is why any human would avoid anything, because it's too difficult to feel.
Right.
And the truth is, you can do it. The truth is, you've probably gone through enough at this stage, and I believe from what I'm getting about you and what I'm experiencing about you is that you want this, and you're trying to fill in some of the blanks here about, okay, but how? I am suggesting to you very strongly, this is how I think you're going to get there. I think anything else that you try to do is not going to zero in on where the action really is until you start to integrate this father piece. Now, here's what it is. For people get afraid of psychology. Very simply, I think psychology should be so simplified as best as humanly possible. We are creatures of unfoldment. There are times, this developmental psychology is all about how there are different stages of development. We need different things during those stages. When we get the things that we need at various stages, we can successfully move on to the next stage. That's called school. That's called a career. That's called any field of learning, including life. We need to graduate, and you need the right stuff in each phase. When we don't get the right stuff in a certain phase in order to successfully graduate to the next phase, whatever the glitch happened in the system gets reproduced into that next level. So the abandonment that you experienced that never quite healed for you, that your parents could not fix for you, the abandonment that you experienced got reproduced. And the way it got reproduced is you took it on yourself, because that's what humans do. You reproduced it in your system. I abandon myself. I abandon my body. And then, oh my goodness, I do the best that I can to get back in. So now we're doing a strategic strike. I don't always do strategic strikes into the past. This is a time, honestly, my friend, I think we need to do a strategic strike and really land there and get that this is about you kind of helping yourself become a man in a different way.
Okay.
It's really helping yourself into manhood in a whole new way. So you have raised 2 kids. You have gotten to this point. You're here. You're alive. You've worked hard. You've put out your best efforts. I wish you can coast right now.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
But I don't know that any of us can to a great degree. If you can't coast, then you can't coast. It just means there's more work to do. So to me, this is you stepping into to being a good father to yourself, I would love for you to do some journaling about what that actually means for you. If it does mean indeed anything to you, how would you father yourself now, right now? What ways can you internally, and how you talk to yourself and how you treat yourself? In specific things that you do, how could you be a good father to you? Hint, the best way you could be a father to you is to keep hanging by your side and not disappearing. In order for you to take your foot off the gas pedal of eating what you know you need to eat, there's an abandonment that happens. There's a checking out that happens. I want you to stay by yourself. You might decide, wait a second, I need to follow a different diet, one that's a little more doable. I want to make sure the diet you're on is sustainable for you and it's not super hard. And I want you to start to notice the little sensations around when you eat, and just start to feel the smaller details. How does this food feel in my body? Whoa, how did I get to the point where I was so ravenous? Whoa, how did I get to the point where I was so full? While you're eating, I would love for you to stay awake as you can. Because if you
Excuse me.
Because if you can stay as awake as you can while you're eating, that's a huge victory. Because you're a smart guy and you're going to start to notice things instantaneously. It's hard to stay awake there because the body is a painful place to be if there's pain from the past. So it's about you learning simply to stay awake when it comes to food, when it comes to eating. Just stay mildly awake. Notice yourself. Notice your eating. Right. Slow it down. Enjoy it. How you doing so far?
Good.
What's landing in your system? Are there any ways that you're taking some of what I'm saying and languaging it better for you? Like how's this landing in your system? And how would you, if any way, say it differently so it's more apropos for you?
It's all hitting. It's a direct hit with everything. It's everything sounds like logical. It sounds like it's all making sense. One of the things that excuse me, that I just started working on over the last few weeks is trying to be more present in everything. Mm-hmm. Religiously, I made a shift to Christianity about 1.5 years ago. And one of the things I was telling people is that I like going to church on Sunday because I feel grounded. I feel like I can go, and it's my opportunity to look back on the past week and see everything that I may have missed. And then I started asking myself this question: why do you miss it? Why do you miss the things that God's doing in your life? Mm-hmm. And it's because I'm not present. So that's just a mirror to my relationship with food and everything else, is that I'm going through the motions. I'm a passenger in my own car as I'm driving through life. And so I said, if I could work on just being more present, being more aware. So I started 2 things. I started doing some breathing exercises, just being here, noticing sensations, all those kinds of things. And then the second thing I started doing was I told myself, anytime I'm about to put food in my mouth, I need to ask myself a question. It can be any question, but it just requires thought instead of being numb. It brings you very present right here, right now. What am I doing? It could be, does this contain gluten? Is this carbs? How many calories is, I didn't even have to have an answer for it, but what it does is it just brings my thinking to present. It forces me to, at least for those first few bites, I know what I'm doing.
Kevin, beautiful. You are so on track there. I'm really happy for you that you've discovered that. I want to make it really clear from my perspective, and I really mean this, you do not have a weight problem. Okay? Your weight may be a problem for you, but right. The problem is not the weight. The problem is, at this point, staying present to yourself and not checking out. The problem of staying present and not checking out is related to a very challenging past, which was not your fault. It is totally understandable that you would respond in this way to the past experience that you had. So what I am trying to say is that not guilty, you didn't do anything wrong, there is nothing wrong with you. You're trying to dig yourself out of a hole that you found yourself in. Okay, it's your hole. And we're your friends. And let's do what we can to help you get out, because we all got our own little hole that we're kind of navigating, so to speak. And yours looks like this and mine looks like that. So the weight is a side effect of all that. You know, there's so much ridiculous, stupid weight hate in the world that is completely unfounded and really comes from, the weight hate comes from people's own insecurities and their own low consciousness around understanding another human being. Anyway, in those moments that you're training yourself to be present and to not check out, I want to consider adding in another little tool there every once in a while, which is when you're trying to stay present and you're talking to yourself and you're talking yourself into being here, a few times say to yourself, how can I best father myself in this moment? What would the good father in me, the smart father, say to me? And channel that smart father.
Okay.
What would a good father, want to put it in religious terms, what would the Father in heaven say in that moment who's being a great father? What would Christ say if he was being the great father to you in that moment? So let that voice come through you, because that's the voice of a higher power. It's the voice of a higher knowing. And it's that father energy that you need. And you need to find it in yourself at this point. Because then when you can do that, then you can start to steer your own ship. You know, when we're young and dad's driving the car, you know, and dad's driving the car because he's present. If you and I are not present when we drive the car, there's going to be some issues. So you're present enough in your life to drive the car and get where you need to go and bring in the income and make sure things are working. And now your next task is to get so good at being in the car, your body, and driving the car, being present to the nuances, red light, green light, here comes a car, here comes this, here's a stop. You know, it's like all the little details of being in the car. The car's your body. You want to inhabit it. You want to be a man, your own man behind that wheel. Step one is just be behind the wheel and be attentive to that. And if you have to take baby steps on this for the next 2 years, so be it. Because as you take those baby steps, and you have to be a baby here, you have to be a beginner.
Right.
You have to be generous enough with yourself to know I am starting something that might not be easy. I might not be great at it. I'm great at other things, not this, but I'm going to learn. And if you're willing to be a beginner here and take baby steps and celebrate the small victories,
Right.
I am super confident that you will get where you need to go. Because it feels to me like you're gathering your resources right now and you're making some good moves. You're gathering your spiritual resources right now. And that's a great thing. Because oftentimes, for many of us to make the shifts that we need to make in our life, many of us need that spiritual, religious shift, opening, breakthrough, change, whatever the right words are for you. So you're doing that for yourself, and I'm happy for you. And now it's about you giving yourself the gift of loving yourself enough to stand by yourself and to be present in the littlest ways, with food, with my body, with how I'm sitting, And almost, Kevin, what I think for you is that you're going to be inhabiting your body in a whole new way for the first time. Now, I will say the same for me. I'm inhabiting my body in a whole different way. I've inhabited my body in the past, but I'm a new me now. I know different things than I knew 5 years ago or a year ago or 50 years ago. So we're always inhabiting our body in a different way, for better or for worse.
Okay.
And for you, I want to say that in a lot of ways, you're kind of like a newborn. You're kind of like born again. And you're this young kid entering your body going, okay, how do I make this work? So if you can be that and be willing to be that innocent and be willing to be that humble and know, I'm like a little kid in this body. I'm learning how to feed myself. I'm learning how to be with this body in such a way that it can right-size itself. So I feel good and I'm healthy and I have the life I want and I got the freedom I want. That's your right. That's your inherent right. It is totally doable. I promise you, it's totally doable. And it takes baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps to get there. There's no overnight hit after this. There's no more big surgery. There's no more lottery ticket after this. This is about you doing the baby steps to help get you where you need to go.
Sounds good.
I think it sounds good. And
Yeah.
So, are you the kind of guy that likes to journal, that sort of thing?
I'm reluctant. I don't like my own handwriting. It's hard to read it, but
What will help you mull over some of the things we're talking about, specifically mulling over what are the attributes for me of being a good father to myself? Like how can you best play with that? Like you lying down in bed thinking, like, what does that look like for you?
I think I can try and journal, or at least maybe sit at the computer and journal about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've had discussions with my friend over, when you type versus when you write, that there's, you can get a lot deeper when you're actually using your own handwriting. But, I think I've been more reluctant to do that because I'm reluctant to take a look at myself at a deeper level. But, I know it's where you got to go.
Yeah. It's time, my friend. It's really time. It's just now's the time. You have the capabilities now. You have the wherewithal now. You're at the right age where this is a stage of development where you're ready to step into your manhood like never before. You're not 20, you're not 30, you're not 40. 50 is a whole different stage. So there's a momentum that's naturally built in. But you have to, and I mean this, you have to take the throne. It doesn't appear. It doesn't happen magically. It's like you got to take it. You got to ascend the throne. You have to walk up the steps to your big king seat at this point. And these are going to be baby steps, but this is, to me, how you do it. So I'm just concerned that you stay on task with yourself.
Okay.
So I'm being a dad here right now. So this is me being a dad saying, well, wait a second. We just talked about this stuff. How are you going to now implement? So it's either you journal, it's either you write at the computer, it's either you lie in bed at night and think about it, which is how I often do it, or I do it in the shower, or you go to your friend and say, listen, here's my homework assignment. Would you be my sounding board? And keep me on task about really exploring this, if that feels comfortable for you. But I really want you to stay on task to notice what makes me a good father to myself, what makes me a good adult to myself, and what are the practical ways that I stand by myself when I start to notice myself checking out. If I was teaching a kid, a young boy, how to drive, I would be a stickler about watching the road.
Right.
So you got to be a stickler with yourself about watching the road, so to speak, which is your body, which is your sensations, which are all the little things. So I want you to figure out how you're going to work this
Okay.
after this conversation. So I'm going to leave that up to you.
Okay.
Fair? Final thoughts, feelings that you want to share about this experience, about what you're thinking right now? Anything that's coming to mind for you?
Well, I'm thinking all those avenues for journaling or the thought process could work in various times. I guess the question is it, I guess it's acceptable to do several different methods of writing it out, working it out, and things like that. But, it all rings true, hits home. It's right what I needed to hear. And it's a road. It's a journey.
It is. It is. And I think this road's going to open up a lot for you. Whenever you look in the mirror from here on in, I would love for you to look at your weight as potential energy. It is. This is what science says about weight. That extra weight, extra fat is stored energy. That's what they say. Stored energy. And I'm like, yes, I agree, but it's not just stored caloric energy. It's stored mana. It's stored power. This is your power that is, okay, it's living in body tissue. We want to get that power into your bloodstream. We want to get it into your mind, your heart, your spirit. And in order to do that, you just got to stay awake at the wheel with yourself, and it'll naturally start to take care of itself. So those are my thoughts. Do me a favor, if there's anything from this conversation that after we finish, at some point where you go, what happened? What was he talking about? I don't quite get that.
Right.
Shoot me an email.
Okay.
Shoot me an email to the email you've been communicating with and say, Mark asked me to get this to him. And it'll get to me.
Okay.
And I don't want you to feel in the dark or unclear about something that I mentioned or said, or if you want some clarification, I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. Sounds good.
Kevin, I think you are a very brave man. I really mean that. To have this conversation publicly, to be at this and working on this at this stage of the game after, taking a few hits and getting the surgery and then gaining some weight back, and to see you still going after this one, you got a bulldog in you. And I really like that. And that's very honorable, and it's a good kind of dog to have inside you.
Right.
So I'm super appreciative of that. I really honor that, and take that energy and make it work in your favor. And I know on the other side there's going to be one powerful dude here.
Yep. I agree.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
And for everybody listening, thanks for hanging in there with us. Thanks for being part of this conversation, part of this tribe. There will be lots more to come, my friends. You take care. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for listening to the Psychology of Eating podcast. To learn more about the breakthrough body of work we teach here at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, please sign up for our free video series at ipe.tips. That's I for Institute, P for Psychology, E for Eating.tips, TIPS. You'll learn about the cutting-edge principles of dynamic eating psychology and mind-body nutrition that have helped millions of people forever transform their relationship with food, body, and health.